Welcome to Shelly's Game Kitchen in Montana. I'm so excited to have you here in my home in the Bitterroot Valley, and I'm going to show you so many new and exciting things with wild and pure game meat this season. Plus, I get to show you wonderful vistas in the landscape of my hometown in the Bitterroot Valley, Montana. So keep watching, stick around for a new season of Shelly's Game Kitchen, where I bring the forest to your table.
Oh, that was so
Welcome back to another episode of Shelly's Game Kitchen. We're here in my kitchen in Montana in the beautiful Bitterroot Valley. It is spring in Montana and it's actually snowing. So we're gonna do a little bit more inside today and maybe we'll get out and put our jackets on and go see some of this snow following on the beautiful Bitterroot Mountains. What I'm gonna cook for you today is going to be elk spaghetti squash. So we're gonna kind of create without the starch of spaghetti. We're gonna use the spaghetti squash as our pasta base. And then I'm gonna brown up some elk burger, and it's 100% elk. We don't cut it with anything. This was harvested by my husband, Brad, and we do all of our own butchering with it. So it's true wild elk from here in Montana. And I'm just going to saute that up with some onion and some mushrooms and garlic. And then I make my own tomato sauce. And this is such an easy thing to do in the fall when you've got an abundance of fresh tomatoes. You can make a wonderful tomato sauce that you can then amend to other cuisines. So it's a great thing to have in your freezer, and then you amend it with other herbs and spices and ingredients and use it as a base sauce. It's one of the 5 mother sauces is a tomato sauce. So we're gonna get that going. So keep on watching while I bring the forest to your table. What I've done here is I've halved my spaghetti squash and taken the seeds out, de-seeded it. And then what I'm gonna do is just kind of dress it with a little bit of olive oil. And what this is doing is it's just kind of giving me a vehicle for my seasonings to hold up in there. So I'm gonna just kind of cover those edges and everything like that. And then I'm going to add just some kosher salt and fresh cracked pepper. And the salt's gonna not only season the squash as it's cooking, but it's also gonna help draw out some of those water out of the squash so we can get a really nice pasta-like consistency. And this again is gonna, oh, that's my herb seasoning, sorry. We want fresh cracked pepper, but that's okay, because we're gonna put that in our sauce. So we're marrying all of that. I'm just grabbing too many things at once. And because I did it on the other side, I'm gonna do it on one or on both. So we're continuous flavors throughout. And then I'm just going to flip this upside down on a lined sheet pan. You know me, I like to have my lined sheet pans. Easier cleanup. And just put that upside down, and then I'm gonna put it into a 350-degree oven for about 40 minutes. It really depends on the size of your squash and whatnot, but how you know, you can see how my hand, as I'm squeezing it pretty hard, I can't squish the squash. So you know when it's done when you grab that and it gives. So right now I'm squeezing it hard, it won't give. When it's done, it'll give. And then we can use a fork and just kind of scoop out those pasta and be ready. So let's get these popped in the oven. Okay, Okay, so now we've got that squash, that spaghetti squash in the oven. Make sure our pan is nice and hot here. And if you watch some of my other episodes, you'll remember that the best way to season your meat is to actually have it kind of laid out flat. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the Montana Flavor to Savor herb seasoning, because this is great for sauces and roasts and meats, but it has the onion and garlic powder, oregano, rosemary, thyme, all of those things in there. So we're just gonna season that, plus salt and pepper. We're gonna season our meat liberally, and then if we have to, we can always come back and add more salt or pepper or what have you. So let's get our pan, it's starting to heat up a little bit, and we're gonna drizzle that with a light olive oil. So I like to use a light olive oil in these cases because this is gonna be a sauce, and I like to use that when I'm sauteing so we get the nice flavors, and let that get to heat. And then we're gonna saute off our onions, and I've just used a yellow onion for this. I've got some fresh garlic I'm going to do after I get these kind of softened a little bit. Always when we're doing that, we want to add just a pinch of salt because that helps layer our flavors, as well as get the onions to help release some of their liquid and soften and get translucent. That's all we're looking for. Because remember I said that I had my tomato sauce already done, and that has onions in it as well as garlic. But this I'm seasoning for my meat, and we're using the wild elk ground. And so we're just gonna this is the aromatics and the flavors for that elk burger. So once these get a little bit more translucent, then I'll add the garlic and let that bloom for about 60 seconds, and then we'll add our meat in. So let's go ahead and add our crushed minced garlic in there and kind of let that bloom as well. The thing with garlic is you just want to kind of get that to where you smell it. It might take 30 seconds. It might take 60 seconds, but you don't want to go too much farther than that. And I can smell it already. Smelling up the home with those wonderful homey flavors makes us hungry. So I'm gonna add my meat in now, the elk here that I have seasoned, remember, with that herb seasoning. And we're just gonna toss that in there and kind of break it up. And then we're gonna let the elk burger brown a bit. And we'll taste for seasoning before we add in our tomato sauce, but then we'll also be adding in some mushrooms in there too. So stick around while we get this all browned off, and then we'll put everything together. So we've got our mushrooms added in there, and now what I want to do is add a little bit more umami flavor. So I've got a little bit of Worcestershire here, and this is one of those secret ingredients in my sauces. I don't know if it's secret, but it's kind of what I do. High-end balsamic vinegar. So it's just adding that little sweetness as well as that interesting little edge on your sauces, and especially my tomato sauce. I love to do that. So now what I want to do is kind of make sure, I'm getting a little steam bath here. I want to make sure that my meat is seasoned the way I want it to, and if we need to add some more of my herb seasoning in there. So let me take a little taste. It's really good, but I'm gonna add just a little bit more of my herb seasoning. Perfect. And then let me add in my tomato sauce. So I made this, so it's got all of the garlic and some onions in there, as well as the tomatoes. and just slowly use that. And I actually made homemade stock as well in using that. So we're gonna let this kind of simmer and marry all of those flavors together. And when we come back, we'll be ready to plate. We're gonna pull that spaghetti squash out of the oven now. So it looks perfect. You can kind of see where everything is pulled apart. It's ready to be with our fork. We're gonna flake that off. Let me grab a fork here. And this is just a great substitution, like I said before. If you don't wanna have, you know, heavy starch for dinner, for spaghetti, but you still want that sauce, because it's kind of all about the sauce. So all you do is get in there, and I love having some of those caramelized bits of the spaghetti squash, because it's just adding flavor and texture. So I don't mind that at all. And I'm just gonna get in here and with my fork, loosen that up, but you can see how it really kind of resembles some pasta. So this is not, you don't have to have a, you know, it's a big thing to have like zoodles or whatever from zucchini, and you need a spiralizer. You don't need that with this. And this is actually my son's favorite way to have spaghetti, is having it with the spaghetti squash. So I know he's watching, he's gonna be super sad that he wasn't here to enjoy it. So now that I've flaked that all off with the fork, I'm just gonna add it to my plate. Look at that, oh, just wonderful, wonderful little vegetable noodles. Love it. And then what we're gonna do is I'll set this one aside for another plate. The crew probably is hungry for lunch. So what I'm gonna do now is spoon in some of my elk meat sauce. So I've got the mushrooms in there, as well as my homemade tomato sauce, some balsamic vinegar, and I tasted this a little bit ago to make sure I didn't need any more seasoning, and it's perfect. Can't wait to try this. And like I said, it's all about that sauce. So we're gonna add just a little bit more. And then what I like to do is add just a little bit of fresh Parmesan Reggiano, fresh shaved Parmesan Reggiano. And if you're vegan and you wanna hold that off, it's easily done. And then what I'm gonna do is grab a few bay leaves and chiffonade. So I don't know if you've ever chiffonade before, but it's super simple. One of the secrets is if you grab the smaller leaves first and just kind of group them up together. I like to do that. And then you can envelop it in the larger leaves. And then you just do like a little, what they call a cigar roll. And that's all you're doing, is just kind of tightly rolling that into a cigar shape. And then you just come in with a sharp knife, and we're just gonna go use that knuckle because this is where you're gonna really be rocking it, and get a real thin ribbon. And let that knife follow on that knuckle, and just kind of move your guide hand back. And I usually stop right when we get to the point of the little tips and pull that, because this is all about visual. So you've got your nice little ribbons there, and we're gonna top that off. Beautiful green, beautiful basil. I love the smell of fresh basil. And then high quality olive oil is always something a little nice to do. So I'll just drizzle a little bit of that over, and maybe some fresh cracked pepper. And there we have elk spaghetti squash dinner. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Shelly's Game Kitchen. I enjoyed cooking my wild elk spaghetti squash dinner for you in my kitchen in Montana. Catch me on social media at Chef Shelly Meyer, or get my spices at Montana Flavor to Savor. Tune in next time while I continue to bring the forest to your table. Montana Flavor to Savor. We've spent decades creating the best flavors for you to enjoy. All natural, no preservatives, gluten-free. No fillers, just flavor. You can trust Montana Flavor to Savor to bring you wholesome, all-natural seasonings for whatever you're creating in your cuisine. Go to montanaflavortosavor.com today.